I gotta pass to Disney, huh? What should be done with the X-Men? What political and social tone should the mutant team have in Marvel's new saga? After the intro, we'll talk about this guy with the arms. Hang on. Hello, Pop Consumer Society. We're back. Let's talk about X-Men. We're in the process of developing the script. In the development of the story and in the development of the tone. Of the tone that this new franchise will have. So this rumor came out kind of without an author, without anything kind of thrown out there, that there was an internal standoff, a tug of war, that the guy, Kevin Feige, wanted the X-Men to be more clearly politicized. The metaphor for social issues, political issues, that the X-Men would discuss prejudice, discrimination, racism, segregation. And, on the other hand, Bob Iger, Chief Executive Officer of Disney, would be trying to calm things down. He would be like, calm down, slow down, hold back, because the situation out there isn't good. The situation is complex. So let's hold on a bit, let's not talk about this subject. Let's just tell the superhero story and nothing else. And then there are a lot of people arguing as if this thing had any reason to exist, any purpose. As actual news, but a lot. It seems like something very much ours, you know, very dichotomous, very black and white, very clearly like this. Manichean, it's either this or it's that, and then both want one thing. You know what it seems like? When that story came up about Disney and Sony wanting... Disney wants an urban movie, Sony wants a multiversal movie, and they can't agree, and we spent a long time discussing this thing, but in the end, Disney also wanted a multiversal movie, because the Spider-Man movie ended up between Doomsday and Secret War, and it needs to move the multiverse saga forward. So actually, there wasn't a discussion, there wasn't this arm wrestling. It could have existed in some subtle way with some influences there, but it wasn't a clear thing, like, it's going to be this way or it's not going to be this way. This whole story about X-Men, I think that's kind of what's happening. A deliberate thing to create division, to create discussion, to create controversy, to generate clicks and engagement, which is the currency here on social media. So, making up that there are sides and asking, so which side are you on? There is no side. Bob Iger and Kevin Feige want the same thing. Money. The only side is money. And I think... I'll give my opinion, that X-Men, because of what it is, will touch on these topics. It's inevitable that the X-Men are treated as metaphors for prejudice, discrimination, and segregation, just as they've always been since the 60s. It became more political over the years when Stan Lee created the X-Men. Stan Lee wasn't a political guy, he wasn't an activist, he didn't go to protests against the Vietnam War or for civil rights, he wasn't someone involved with politics, but he was an attentive guy. He was a guy who understood what was happening in the world, he could see the changes, the winds of change that were blowing, and he used that in his work, he channeled that into his characters, he knew how to absorb the ethos of the moment and say, no, this is what young people are thinking today, I'll put it into my characters. He commercialized the atmosphere of his time and used that in Iron Man, used that in the X-Men, used that in other characters he would create, like Black Panther. Preventing the X-Men from being that kind of metaphor is impossible. Not even the X-Men from the 2000s could do that. It was a period prior to what is called the Culture War. Today this would go unnoticed. Bryan Singer himself also brought this to his X-Men, this metaphor for homosexuality, this political metaphor. He himself gave several interviews even to give it a more serious tone. For the X-Men, he would say, no, Professor Xavier and Magneto, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, they have this duality that was never intentional. What Stan Lee wanted to do, over time it started to take on this weight as society became more mature. The comics were also becoming more serious. However, it wasn't initially. It was something that gained popularity over time. And then Bryan Singer brought this scientific discussion about scientific ethics. He didn't want to make a comic book movie. He wanted to make a science fiction. He called it X-Men. So it always had that. And if you want to know what the tone of the X-Men will be, now you should check out X-Men 97. Go check out the scripts of X-Men 97, the way it's handled in every episode. There's always something, some connection to something real, to something that's actually happening with real minorities. And that's going to be used in the movie? There's no way it won't be used in the movie? Then this whole story, no, but Disney is withdrawing from the culture war, really. Bob Iger said this openly in an interview, but what he means is that Disney will stay out of political stances as a company, as a media conglomerate, which has a broad audience with diverse political views and wants to please everyone. For what? For money. So Disney taking a stance in a controversy like that with DeSantis, with the don't say gay thing, Bobby Iger thinks that's an unnecessary position for the company because they make entertainment. They don't do politics. They're not there to teach anyone. And honestly, it's even a bit hypocritical because in the end, Disney just wants that money that's out there. So I don't think there will be any backtracking in the tone or language of the movies, okay? Not because of this. We're not going to have a setback. Disney isn't suddenly going to become a reactionary company. They're going to keep the same stances, the same guidelines, including something that's already kind of established in unions and so on, this whole story. The diversity thing, having a certain percentage, a coefficient of underrepresented minorities on the team, in the cast, all of that is basically a checklist. It's not like someone just wants to do something crazy. It's not crazy. It's something that's happening. It's real. You have to open your eyes and see what's going on. So this whole story of, oh, if Bob Iger gives the order, since he tells Kevin Feige what to do, the X-Men won't be politicizing issues, won't be lecturing about issues, that's not going to happen. I think the trend is toward a slightly more subtle approach. Not as explicit as it was 5-10 years ago, which was the peak of that approach. So that's my opinion about this so-called controversy, which I think is completely manufactured just to create this online discomfort we're seeing. There are a lot of people commenting, and I have to say I need to take a stand here as well. Because I see that people are buying into it as if it were something like, wow, the guys had a live debate, and they had an argument about this issue. And there isn't, right? I think Kevin Feige and Bob Iger are much more in sync than out of tune. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. I'll return with more pop culture content soon after the intro. Click the channel options to stay longer. See you later, soon or in a bit. Bye. Subtitles by Adriana Zanotto.